Welcome to the Authentic Confidence Podcast with Ben Fauske. Our mission is to help you find, coach, and communicate confidence in every area of your career. Join us for real conversations about how to build a confident life with world-class leaders, educators, and influencers.
All right, everyone, welcome to Authentic Confidence. I am your host, Ben Fauske, and excited to have Allison Garner with us today. Hello, Allison. So excited. So Allison she's a published author. She's a TEDx speaker, and she also is the owner of an executive coaching and leadership development firm called Thoughtly, and also one of my dearest friends. So Allison, welcome to the podcast. Excited to have you. So as always, we have the same opening question for our guests. What's been your journey with confidence? Fill us in.
Well, I think if I go backwards, my confidence now as a result of quitting my lifelong career, it's really high. Yeah. So like today I'm 50 and I launched this totally different career in my early 40s. So it's really high now. And if I go back to, a place where it was the lowest, or I remember it being the lowest, was probably middle school.
Yeah. So what was going on there? Which is tough for just about everybody.
Yeah.
I weighed about 60 pounds in middle school, by the way, which is evidently not exactly what most people are looking for.
No. Yeah, I was really chubby as a kid.
Oh, okay.
Like real chubby. And
we would have been great friends because we tended to,
yes, like cartoons.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So middle school was rough. I think that's when I started to notice, like, it's like the year I stopped doing cartwheels for no reason.
Yeah.
Right. Like suddenly you're aware that other people are watching you and they're judging you.
Yeah.
And I think
they're not laughing with you. They're laughing at you.
Totally. And it's such an awkward age anyways.
Yeah.
Like it's such a mess. Middle school to me is just like, could we just skip over all that? So that was rough.
So what do you think you were saying to yourself or about yourself during that phase?
Oh man, I wanted to be popular. That's what I wanted.
Why do you think that is? What was it that popularity had that you?
Everybody liked them.
So really, it's just wanting to be liked, right?
For sure.
Popular kids were liked,
accepted. It's tighter.
And if you're accepted, then what happens?
Then you're fine.
Yeah, right. You're loved. You got friends. You got people that you can go through hard things with. You're not alone. The phone's ringing.
Well, it's also that you're doing it right.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing it right, then you're accepted. So if I'm not being accepted, I gotta keep trying things until I find a way in.
Yeah. And if I don't find a way in, then there's something wrong with me. I mean, that's the language I would have used early. Like, no, there's something wrong with me. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something. So you get through that phase. So how did you survive that?
God, how did I survive that? I did get into the popular crowd.
Oh, you did? You made it in.
Oh.
Did they have a name or anything, like some popular?
Just if the popular girls hung out with you. And at that point, it was actually through the boys that I ended up becoming friends with the girls.
Sure.
I always fit in and belonged and were accepted by boys my whole life.
Interesting.
So it's funny. If Jim Bars ever listens to this podcast, it was because of him. He weighed 60 pounds in middle school. So
see, I told you we would have been friends.
Yes.
I told you we would have been friends.
Little. Yeah.
Our group was called the Sisters in our school, the Sisters. And they picture the hallway where the 8 women walked down, and it was
and their hair is blowing.
You would put your shoulders up against the lockers and try not to get trampled.
Here they go.
Yeah, it was a real thing. Yeah. I was definitely not friends with them, by the way. Not at that point. But So you get accepted,
Mhm.
but were you attempting to be someone you weren't to get into that group? Were you?
Sure.
Yeah. So what
I
was
mean, I
that?
had to be.
The imposter syndrome, which is what everyone, wants to
Yeah.
talk about with that. So what was that looking like?
I don't know that I knew who I was. I just knew that it wasn't right. And until I could conform and be like them to be accepted. So once I was accepted, I was like, okay, well, this is what it must be like.
Yeah. This is what you do.
Yeah. But it still wasn't quite right.
Mm,
Like I still would find areas where it's like, ooh, then one of them would get mad at me, right? And then they would all turn against me. And I'd be like, oh shit, I did it wrong again.
yeah.
Can we swear on your podcast?
Yeah. You can just say whatever you want. Yeah. We're
So,
this and when that happens, then it's like we go back to that underconfident
oh,
space of
yeah.
saying, okay, what do I have to who do I have to apologize to, whether I mean it or not,
Yeah, to get back in.
to get back in?
Right.
Because being left out again would mean, right? What?
Well, it was terrorizing, and I'm not using
Yeah.
that word lightly.
Yeah.
I could not sleep. I remember my dad had remarried by then, and this is his second wife. She was really kind, and she didn't have any children of her own, but she was really good at listening. And I
Hmm.
remember calling her in the middle of the night, even though I'm at my mom's house, I would call this stepmom,
Oh.
and I would be sobbing. And she would be like, okay, this is what you do. And
Oh.
I remember her one time, she made a big batch of popcorn and then wrote the names of all of my friends and oh my God, it's making me cry. She brought it to my house so that I could give it to these girls the next day so that we could be friends again.
Oh my gosh. What a sweetheart.
She was, yeah.
So what did that deposit mean to you?
Oh, it was huge because I didn't know how to really make friends.
Yeah.
And my dad wasn't really around, and my mom, she just taught me that when somebody in her world, if you screw up, you're dead to me. So
Yeah.
then if somebody did something to me, then my mom would say, okay, well, I guess she's not your friend anymore. And then
Right.
she was off. Like that was it. They were no longer. And that, okay, well, I tried that. That didn't work very well because then I
Yeah.
ran out of friends because everybody makes mistakes, right? And my first stepmom was the one who showed me whatever happened, the thing to do is to go back and just dial back in, be nice,
Yeah.
bring a gift, apologize, whatever you need to do. I don't know if that was like the right thing either, but
to me, I guess it was a foundational person who,
yeah.
right. So in my confidence journey, my experience, there's always someone along the way that believes in us or sees us differently than we see ourselves.
Yeah.
And it shifts. It's like, maybe I'm not a reject. Maybe I'm not, maybe there isn't something wrong with me because she's so kind and for me. And sounds like you felt that with her. Like,
Yeah.
who
I could trust her.
Who makes, popcorn and gets the names, like clearly that's someone who's laying awake at night, wondering how you're doing.
Yeah.
And what does
Yeah.
that feel like to have someone like that in
Yeah.
your life? What shift did that help you make?
Well, then I started to like learn the social cues and build that social awareness with her help.
Mm.
And like
That's
being able
awesome.
to, yeah. So that was huge because then if you fast forward to college, that is really, I think a lot of my college journey and getting through engineering school was because I knew how to make friends with everybody.
Yeah. So how'd you choose engineering?
It was mostly because I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and it pays well. And and it was for sure my father still like yearning for my father's acceptance. He's an engineer. So like part of that, like if I could do it, then maybe he would accept me. And there was definitely a chip on my shoulder around I think I was insecure about my own intellect.
And this would prove, if I can graduate with this, then obviously I'm smart. I have the proof of a science engineering background that,
Right.
and it's funny because I minored in computer science in college, and I was awful at it.
Oh,
And it was because Y2K. So I
yeah.
graduated in 1998 and I was like, you have to get a job in computers. Remember, I mean, that's really the
Yes.
phrase. And I was awful in it. I was absolutely awful in it. And the reason why I went into it is because, okay, well, I'll have, these people that think I will be, if I minor in this, then I must be smart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the reality is I had no passion, no interest, no
Right.
skill. I mean, it was a miserable experience. I actually cheated in a class. So this is a weird story. So I cheated in this class, and I was at UW Green Bay, which is, I went there to major in golf. And I contacted the professor years later and
And confessed.
apologized for my cheating and asked him if I had to like give my diploma back. Like I was that, it bothered me for that many years. I went through like a cleansing experience. And he's like, so I email him, dear professor, whatever. I think he might still be there, but so sorry, I cheated in your class, and what do I need to do? And he's like, well, in all of my 30 years, I've never gotten this email before. He's like, so basically your penance is tell people not to cheat and that it's going to catch up to them and not to make the mistake you made. So yeah, I literally like 20 years after graduation sent him an email saying I'm sorry. But anyway, so you major in engineering. You get done with that. What happens next?
Then I get out into the world. I get hired. I end up in the oil industry. Gosh, was I insecure then? I think I still had a massive chip on my shoulder. At that point, I wasn't insecure about the social part. I was just insecure about my intellect.
Yeah. Proving the world wrong. Here's a woman in a man's world.
A little bit of that for sure.
Prove to you I can do this. I got this. You won't be smarter than me. You won't have better solutions than I have. Like I'm going to outwork you, out hustle you, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that and I was also like there was a physicality as well. That my first job was in the oil field, so there was a lot of physicality in that training. So you're out there and you're slinging pipes and you're throwing around sledgehammer. And I ended up in that first job as a tool pusher, which meant the drilling bit, which is 6 feet long and whatever. We had 2 on site, so I was always repairing one. So it was a very physical job. And for me, that was really important because that was the other place that I was insecure because I'd been heavy as a kid and I never excelled in athletics. I was always good enough. And my insecurity around my own athleticism, I was in the popular crowd in high school. So these girls were not just fucking smart, like they were so smart, but they were massive athletes. And I tried so hard to keep up with them.
Yeah.
And so that was another thing for me. Like my first year in college, I walked on to the rowing team at Madison. And I got on. And I was actually really good at that sport, which is amazing because I'd never been good, but that was back in the days where nobody had rowed.
Sure.
So all of us were walk-ons. So when I'm in a group of people I've never done it before, like I'm good.
Yeah.
So anyways, I still had that chip on my shoulder as well as like I wanted to be seen as physically strong and like unbreakable.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So you're a badass. You're a badass. You're like, come bring it. I got
so
whatever
I got
you do.
Boots. I got a hard hat. Don't carry that for me. Don't fix it for more. Don't you dare tighten that for me. Like,
so would you say you had armor at that point? You're sort of armored 100%. For battle. You're ready for an argument, ready for things that, go ahead and challenge me. Good luck. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So you go through that. And what happens next?
I was pretty miserable. Intellectually, it was not stimulating work at all. It was like mind-bogglingly boring. Like it was, and I hated it. So 2 to 3 years. Were you good at it? I don't know. Not really. Like I wasn't bad. Yeah. I did get promoted quickly, and then I was sent to start up a new business line out on the West Coast. I don't know. Maybe I was good. I don't even know that it mattered. I just hated the job so much. So I was like, I couldn't. So that's when I made the jump into refining. Yeah. So what happened was I called my dad and I went home for the 4th of July and he's like, are you ready to come work for my company?
What was that like?
I'm not working for you. It was without going into all the therapy and the weird daddy issues and all of that, right? It was an exit strategy for me. I could get
Yeah.
out of that
Yep.
industry
Sure.
and
Yep.
get back
It's
home.
it's a gap. It's a stopgap.
Fine. But then I come back to the thing that had been generating so much of my own self-loathing and
Yeah.
unworthiness, and I jumped right back into it.
Yeah.
So now I'm working for my father, and he still doesn't truly accept me. It's not that he actively didn't accept me, and there wasn't much to like not accept. Like,
Yeah.
he just didn't see me as strong, smart, whatever. And so I was going to prove to him.
Yeah.
And I spent 17 years in his company proving to him that I was smart, I was strong, I could do anything. Please be proud.
So how do you do that for 17 years? What are you saying to yourself during that journey that allows you to stay in it? Because obviously you could do a million. At some point now you're back home or in the area you wanted to be. Obviously it doesn't take, it's not a stopgap if it's 17 years. So what are you saying to yourself to stay there?
That it was like that this is going to be my company. And when I take over, then
it'll be different.
Yep, I'll make it better.
Yeah. So what broke that, or what caused you to no longer to believe that? Because obviously you ended up leaving after 17 years, whatever. What changed?
It was therapy.
So tell me more about that.
So right around 2008, I was drinking a lot, and I was starting to get scared because I come from a long line of alcoholics. That was scaring me. I was like, this probably isn't good. So
what were you scared was going to happen?
That I would become an alcoholic. I'd be like my mom, and eventually my sister.
Yeah.
And then eventually my husband and my son.
Yeah. So it's real, right? So the fear is real.
Totally.
This is not an irrational fear. This is a rational one. Yeah.
Yes. So I started therapy at that point, and I was working 40 hours. I had 2 children in diapers. I was the caretaker of my grandparents who were really, really sick and had moved back from Florida. My dad was supposed to take care of them. He didn't. So then I decided, from my high pedestal that I put myself on, it was my job to do that as well. And I got my MBA.
Yeah.
All during that. And so when I showed up at the therapist, she's just like, oh boy, that's a lot. And you talk to my kids or my husband, anybody that knew me then, I was not nice. I had a very short fuse.
Yeah. On the go.
Really, it was awful.
No room for mistakes, no room for incompetence, no room for anyone not doing exactly what they need to do around you, right?
There's no grace. I had no access to grace.
You had no margin for grace. What do you got? 5 minutes in your car to take a breath?
Right. It was awful.
So how did you decide to leave then? What was the final decision?
Well, I had to do the journey of like, who am I? So if I'm not an engineer, right, then what am I? Who am I? So that's where that work started to kick in, where, what am I? What are my gifts? What am I actually pretty good at that people actually can't do? You think that your gifts aren't gifts until people are like, I don't know how to do that, right? So that's where I started to
So what were they?
I'm really good with people.
Yes, you are.
And thank you. And I'm really good at holding. My strength lies in my ability to hold a tight container. I can be with people in their darkest places.
Yeah. And isn't that interesting, Allison? I found this too, is your experiences qualified you to be in that space with people.
Oh my God. Yeah.
If you hadn't gone through, and this is what I think, in confidence journeys, people think they see Allison, oh my gosh, she's traveling the world. And we're going to get to that in a second, traveling the world, helping people in significant ways. And life has always been easy, but often the reason why you're able to do those things is because you've been through and can relate to people that are going through pretty traumatic experiences. And, my story, the 8 jobs in 8 years, that's a horrible resume. That's a great coach's resume though.
Yeah.
Right. And it's because I'm like, man, I've worked for narcissistic leaders, and I've worked for incompetence, and I've, hated my job and had panic attacks trying to get in the parking lot. So for your journey, clearly when people say, Allison, you don't understand what I'm going through right now, even if you don't, chances are you're like adjacent to something right? You like, in my darkest point, I said I was never suicidal, but I could see suicidal thoughts from where I stood. Like I understood suicidal thoughts for the first time. And so that journey, I'm guessing during this therapeutic experience, now you're going, oh, I think I can help people. And I don't know what that looks like, but it's better than this. It's better than this sort of soul sucking work that I'm in now.
Yeah.
So then you leave, and what do you launch? What do you do next?
So in the interim, I did get trained in coaching. It was actually my therapist's suggestion, and I laughed at her, as I do. And because I think I laughed at you, and then we started working together, and then I laughed at somebody else that you and I both know. I ended up working with him too. And I got trained. So I went to school to get trained in coaching just to see, like, let me put a toe in the water.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a really good use of my skills, because there is enough intellectual challenge.
Yeah.
And there's enough of the emotional connection and difficulty and intensity that, like, it was a sweet spot for me. So
and this is Thoughtly, right? So this is launching Thoughtly.
So this is back in 2015.
And you and I met. So Allison did a keynote at the Women's Leadership Conference, and I opened for her. And I will never forget when you were done, in the middle of, I'm like, Allison and I are going to, if she'll allow me, like not in a creepy stalker way, but if she's open to being friends, like so my experience of your keynote was so honest.
Mm-hmm.
This is a person who doesn't feel the need. She's not a keynote speaker on a stage.
Yes.
She is saying, this, I want to be seen by you. This is who I am. And I want you to spend the rest of your life being seen for who you are. And I felt that in your presentation, and I was like, wow. And then I saw your coaching in action, and I'm like, she coaches the same way. It's like, I might be wrong on this, but I'm experienced. Like, what do you think about this? And I mean, just a super refreshing perspective, because I think there's so many, that's why I asked you about the armor before. I think so many of us are just behind the armor, phoning it in. It's a version of ourselves, like what you were in middle school, right? You were a version of yourself that you wanted to present. So how did you approach, what was it like then when you start this coaching work? You have very little background in it.
Right.
People would say,
and I'm an engineer. So people are like,
why would I hire you to be my executive coach?
Right.
How did that go?
Didn't go well, Ben. Didn't go well. So I will say, and I remember, like, at some point it was like my third or my fourth month after leaving that company and like trying to launch this one. And it was like every morning I woke up and was like, I was totally anxiety ridden. And my husband's like, okay. And we decided to pay off our house the year, because I was like, if I don't bring in income, we're not losing this house.
Yeah.
That was the plan.
It's real.
And he's like, I'll keep the insurance and you can like start this and then ramp up. It'll take you 3 years, right? And I was like, I don't know. I've never done this before. So off I go. In my first year, I made like $6,000. And so my husband's like, that was cute, but like, now you've got to get a job.
Yeah.
So I was massively insecure. I found a whole new level of fear and insecurity around rejection.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
Yeah, you have a great conversation with someone. It's like getting a second date, right? You're like, well, for sure, we're going to talk again.
Yeah.
And then
they don't.
I'm not sure I have your right email, because I've emailed you 5 times. And
you there?
Yeah. I thought you liked me. Yeah. I mean, it's real, because, right, you're now selling yourself for the first time. Yeah. You're not selling an industry or a product or a service that can prove work. It's like, here's me. Would you like to work together? And then they say no, which means what? What did you interpret that rejection as?
Yeah. So irrelevant and unimportant.
And now let's fast forward to today. You're taking trips around the world.
Yes.
You have amazing coaching clients. You are, have led sessions and have done coaching experience that are literally people are describing as life-changing, game-changing, never seen before. So how's life now?
I cannot believe that I get to do this, right? Like there are times when like gratitude's not even the right word because it's more than that.
Yeah.
I can't. So there was a book that was written, and he's taught. It's David Brooks, and I think the book is A Path to Character, and he talks about resume virtues versus eulogy virtues, right? And when he talks about the eulogy virtues, I just heard this a few weeks ago. I was like, that's it.
Yeah. That's what matters.
People now know me, and they know that I see them, and they know that I get them, and they know that there's one person out of the 7.7 billion on this planet that will stand for them.
Yeah.
And I will help them to see the things that either they don't want to look at or that they don't even know are there.
You're making popcorn.
Yeah. Yes. And like I touch my chest because it's like my heart just explodes. I'm such a, like, connection is who I be. It's one of my essences. And when I get to do it, it's like crack, you just can't have enough of it.
Well, and what I picture, Allison, is like your stepmom made the popcorn for your friends. Like I'm picturing you laying awake at night going, what is this person's breakthrough? And oh, that's it. That's the question. That's the conversation. Like I've been around you enough. Allison does a ton of help with our work and the group coaching that we do. She's fabulous. It's not a job for you. Like this is, you would do it for free, and we don't, but you would.
Yeah.
And the reason is because, when I love the eulogy analogy, right? It's like the resume is all about the stuff. And yet when we drive off the parking lot or when it's our last day there, the stuff's going to change. The processes are going to change. Engineering is going to change. But the deposit your stepmom made in your life that day is permanent. That was a permanent imprint in Allison, you matter. And I don't even care what happens with your friends or doesn't happen. Like I'm doing this for you, not for them.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's the sense that I get. That's the kind of coach you are. It's like, yes, your family and your team's important and your organization and increasing revenue and results and all that stuff matters. I'm making a deposit in you because you matter to me and you're worth the investment. And so to me, that's the work that I see you doing now. And, for all of us, it's not a straight line, but your organization is amazing. And the work that you do is amazing. And so final thoughts for our podcasters, our friends, final, what are your thoughts, ideas, suggestions for those who are listening to this and they're saying, but you don't understand my journey, Allison. You don't know the cards I've been dealt. Yeah. You and Ben, life's been easy for you guys.
Yeah.
What's your recommendation or suggestion for people who are in the middle of it right now and are having a hard time finding confidence from where they sit?
So when you're in the dark place, and we all have dark places, it doesn't matter what your flavor is. We've all been through them. I want people to hear this statement, and that is there's no reason to do it alone. You can. No harm, no foul. There is no reason to do it alone. So get supported. Find people who do this work. Find people who are immersed in the work themselves and go be with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be with someone who's in a spot you'd love to get to at some point.
Absolutely.
And chances are they have their own story just like yours.
Everybody does.
Yeah. And I think, for all of us and in this work that we do, the day I hired a coach, it's humbling to say, I need someone to help. I'm sort of stuck. I just need somebody to help me get unstuck. And we're just, as Americans, I think, built to figure it out, right? That every hero in every movie is like figuring it out on their own. Well, the reality is if we really watch those movies, there's always somebody that makes a deposit. And so if you're an executive and you're feeling stuck and you want to be seen and you want to be heard and you want to get some challenging questions or some honest, caring feedback, Allison, I couldn't recommend her enough for that sort of work. So you go to gothoughtly.com. So Thoughtly. Oh, you're right. That's right. bethoughtly.com.
Yeah.
So bethoughtly.com.
Yeah.
And she would love to help you in whatever way she can. And I just want to say, in our work, Allison came on the authentic confidence journey early. And there are a few people that, you sort of trust with, this is important work to me. This really matters. And for Allison to join the journey with us, and she said yes, even when she's like, another assessment about, oh my gosh, the world does not need another assessment, Ben. I'm like, I know, but just experience it with me. Just try it with me. And she's like, this is going to change people's lives. This is different than some of the other. And just the encouragement in my early days of this work of you saying, no, Ben, let's keep doing it.
Yeah.
And we just finished a retreat last week. That was, we had 12 people with us, and it was just an amazing experience. And Allison, was there helping us lead it. So I can't thank you enough for all the work and who you are in my life and in the lives of those you serve and in your family's life. So thank you so much for the time together. And this has been Authentic Confidence, everyone. Thank you, Allison.
Thanks, Ben.
And I'm sure we'll have you again on soon. This was great.
Please. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.